All right, all right, all right. Here we are behind the red door. I am Penney Aiken, and
Jen Petersen.
we have the pleasure today of speaking with Dominick Comer. He is the operating principal of our Keller Williams Living Office and the owner of Tribe Title Company. So welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Absolutely. So I'm going to jump right in.
Okay.
Who are you?
Let's
Tell
rock
us
and
about
roll.
yourself, right?
Yeah. So I'm Dominick Comer. I was born and raised in Walled Lake, Commerce area in Oakland County, Michigan. Pretty much lived there my whole life. And I ended up getting into real estate in 2013, and I'm sure that we'll get into that a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's been absolutely life-changing.
Absolutely. And I don't think I overstep when I say that you definitely changed our lives.
I was just going to say that same thing.
Abso-freaking-lutely.
Meeting Dominick, I would say, has also been a life-changing relationship for sure.
Thank you.
So jumping back in, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be rich. Truly, I wanted to be a business owner. I didn't know what kind of business exactly, but I've always just been a dreamer, and I knew that I would be someday.
That's awesome.
Awesome. So no thoughts specifically how you were going to get to that point?
Nope,
Just
it didn't matter.
That was the end goal, and you were just getting there.
Yep.
Very cool.
Entrepreneur from the start.
Yeah. Well,
Legit.
so I grew up pushing a lawnmower around my community that I lived in growing up, which was a trailer park, and there were 600 homes in there that I got to go knock on doors and mow the grass. That was the beginning of it. And in the winter, I would go around knocking on doors, and I would shovel snow.
Shovel snow. Wow.
So awesome.
A lot of people get started that way.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So what drew you to real estate then? Because that's,
Yeah. So
hand in hand, right? But
It definitely is. My first real estate agent planted a seed with me in 2004 when I moved back to Michigan from being I was with the auto industry. And when I bought my first house, my real estate agent thought that I would be so good at real estate. And I was really young. I don't even remember how old I was, 22 maybe at that point. And she said, Dominick, you need to come sell real estate with me. We would be a great team, and you would do awesome. And I said, Christy, you're crazy. Why would I go to commission only? I had a good job at Ford.
Well, that's what I was just going to say. What was your job at the time then? What
Yeah.
were you doing at the time?
I was working on the line at Ford Motor Company.
Okay. Yeah. Steady paycheck, the thought of commission,
Oh, it was scary.
a
Yeah.
little bit terrifying. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was doing exactly what my family thought I should be doing at that time. I mean,
Right.
we were an auto industry family, and if I was, it was easy for me to get through school and then go ahead and do that. I had a job waiting for me to go work on the line at Ford.
yep.
Yeah. How long were you at Ford?
7 years.
Okay.
All right.
And then I took the buyout in 2007, or 2000, yeah, it was 2007. And my family, once again, thought that I was absolutely insane for doing that. But I was looking around the plant, knowing, guys and girls who had been doing that for 40 years that had no plan of retiring. They didn't want to go home. They didn't like their spouses.
Right.
And they were robots. And there was no future. And I was too young. I was still too hungry. And I had to awaken my dream of just going and doing something on my own. And I left.
That's awesome.
So from Ford, you jumped into real estate then?
No.
So what was next?
From Ford, so back to my roots, I went and bought a lawnmower and a trailer and a weed whip and all of that stuff. And I took the buyout money from Ford and bought that equipment and went around and knocked on doors and mowed a bunch of lawns. I had a small landscaping company called Extreme Lawn Care.
Awesome.
And I ended up with close to 100 lawns that I was cutting a week.
Wow.
But they were normal size neighborhood lawns. And I was the same person. I was knocking on doors. I was passing out flyers. I was cutting, weed whipping, and, blowing the grass.
And you were this on your own. This was you were
This was my own
doing
company.
all this, 100 lawns. You're doing 100 lawns.
I ultimately had at the time my ex-girlfriend worked with me, and then I had to hire another guy.
Wow.
But I was still so I was doing the sales part, which I enjoyed.
Yeah.
And then I was doing all of the labor, and then I had to chase down the money when people wouldn't pay their invoice.
Right.
And then the market crash happened, and everything else was going on. And I brought on a partner to build that business out at totally the wrong time, but we wanted to do bigger landscaping jobs and expand. So I went to a friend of mine who was doing larger landscaping jobs and partnered up with him so he could, we could have a crew out doing that and a crew out doing the lawns and grow this thing up. And it didn't work out so well.
But this is 2008. I mean, this is right. So 9/11 and everything is changing. People are, not spending money on those expenses.
Yeah.
They definitely cut that off first, right?
Yeah, sure.
So business ended up not being so great after I got into the partnership, and it wasn't anybody's fault. It was, we went into it knowing everything we knew together.
Right.
And I found myself once again looking around and not living the life that I wanted to live. So I moved on from that and had a couple of other sales jobs because I liked that aspect of it.
Yeah.
Right.
And I failed miserably at every one of them. I sold cars and I was horrible at it.
Really?
Oh, God. I'd sold basement waterproofing systems. I failed at that.
That's a tough gig.
Yeah.
But real estate was always, that seed was always planted in the back of my head. And I knew that it was an opportunity for me to build a business for myself, by myself. And I knew that real estate wasn't a hard sell. It was a relationship building business.
Right.
And I was good at that.
Yeah.
And as long as I knew my product, which was the house in the market,
Yeah.
I would be well on my way. So,
And where did you first reach out then when you kind of made that decision to pursue real estate? Where did you, what was that first step like?
yeah, so it was kind of a funny story. I was talking to my wife about it, and my wife had just become a nurse. And she knew that I was still striving for more. There was something else out there that I was missing.
Right.
And I had helped other people along the way, build their businesses and make money. But it was just kind of a hobby.
Right.
I like to build things. So she said, well, you've always mentioned real estate. Why don't you go jump in, burn all the bridges behind you and just jump in and do that. You'd be great. It was in 2012 that I made that decision, and I ran into an old friend at the gym in Walled Lake and overheard him talking about getting his real estate license out in Brighton.
Ah.
Okay.
And I said, and I was looking around at brokerages at that time, and I said, well, what made you go to Brighton? And he said, oh, the training's amazing. The team leader out there is awesome. Yeah, I mean, he trained some of the top agents in the country. You should come talk to him.
Are we talking about Rick Smith?
No, that was Tom Kotzian at the time.
Oh, yeah. There you
Yeah,
go. Okay. Yeah.
And I had interviewed. I lived in Commerce. I had interviewed at 3 different brokerages in Commerce, including a Keller Williams, and I wasn't blown away by any of them.
Right.
And none of them really wanted me anyway. I mean, they didn't treat me like they wanted me.
Right.
So that was perfectly fine. I showed up to meet with Tom at KW Brighton, and I was still the same person that these other brokerages didn't want. And I came home the next day to a handwritten letter from Tom saying, he really appreciated meeting me. He thought that I would do great and, was welcoming me aboard if I wanted to take the opportunity. And my wife was blown away that this guy even took the time to write a handwritten card to me.
Wow.
Does that, right.
And she's like, I think he saw something in you. So
I never had the opportunity to meet Tom, and I know that he recently passed.
he passed away last year.
Yeah. But everybody that I've ever heard talk about him had talked about him being very instrumental in their career and their career development. And I wish that I would have been able to meet him. I didn't start in the same brokerage, but he would have been one to meet for sure.
Yeah. He was a great guy, and I don't feel like I would be here without him.
Right.
So
I was just gonna say I'm so glad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me too.
So obviously Keller Williams. And so from the start, then you've been KW. There's been no change along the way.
Not a thought of one.
Lucky you to start with what we think. I think you think the same is the best brokerage
in the nation.
Around. I mean, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I have to agree.
Yeah. Right.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, funny story. So I'm in Greater Lansing, right? And I'm at Keller Williams Lansing. I just made the switch from Preview Properties, and the girl, my business partner, was like, "I think we need to go to Keller Williams Livingston." And I'm like, "Whoa, wow! We just switched here like 2 months ago, though.
Just ordered my signs.
I just ordered a lot of signs, and there's just a little bit of money tied up in it. But I'll talk to him. Sure, why not?" And she's like, "Well, he's not part of the Greater Lansing Association." I'm like, "Ooh, this is my honey hole, though. I kind of have to be in GLAR." So then she calls me. She's like, "Okay, he's totally on board. He's totally on board. He's going to join GLAR just for you to join." I'm like,
we're talking,
he doesn't even know me.
Are we talking about you?
He might, yeah, we might be talking about him. So then, long story short, I joined with Red Door in December, kicking my booty that I didn't come sooner, but life led me here, thank goodness. And you're staying in the office, and I'm like, oh, Kristen had come, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, that was you. And you're like, I told you I'd do it.
That's right.
So, it's just the world is so cyclical, and everything happens for a reason. And I can say after being at, this is my fourth brokerage in 6 years, there is no need for anyone to look anywhere else. And I always joke that you don't pay us to say this, we pay you.
Yeah.
That's
could pay
it's
you
a
in
joke.
profit share.
Yeah, right. You do pay us in profit shares. So that's just one of the few things about Keller Williams. It's stunning. And ballpark, what have you paid in profit share this year to your agents?
Oh gosh, we've passed up, I think it's $86,000 year to date in profit share.
That's unbelievable. That's unbelievable.
So that's money that you get for just helping people come to Keller Williams.
That's correct.
It's unreal.
And it's right out of my owner profit. So my
Correct.
owner profit gets split every single month, 48% to 52%, and 48% of it goes back to the agents that have helped grow the company.
It's a culture.
What do you do?
Yeah, it's a culture. I know we talked for some time before I ended up making the switch, and actually my decision to come over that wasn't even part of it. It wasn't even part of it. I made the decision to come over specifically. I had another opportunity in another KW location, and I specifically came to come over to work with you. I mean, there was no question. And the little sprinkle on the top of the cake is just what we get with the profit share. I mean,
Exactly.
It just had nothing to do with it. It had all to do with the KW culture from the top down, but just how I would say you and Aaron are Aaron McKenzie, the team lead in the office. Is that me? Yeah, throw it on. Sorry. How Aaron in our office just pours in to everybody.
Yes.
And I didn't know what I didn't know, until I came over and realized it's hard to put into words. It's hard to put into words how much
I've been told that in comparison to other brokerages and other real estate companies, because I've never been to another one,
Right.
That we have a small staff and a small leadership team. Mm-hmm. But I think by design, it helps us keeps our expenses down, which is something that we teach our agents to build your business. Yep. Always keep an eye on your expenses. We're not lacking in anything.
Absolutely
and our
not.
Leadership team is there 100% of the time to make sure that we can help other agents build their businesses so that they can live their life by design. And it doesn't matter if it's a $50 million producing team or a $5 million or $2 million agent, whatever it is, we can help them design that. And that's just what we're there for full time.
In addition to the business side too, it's something about our the culture in our office. I had Aaron reached out to me the other day, had some personal things going on, and in a very loving way, just checking in. And where do you get that? I mean, it's just, I don't know. So I'm curious because for me, when I got started, I was turned on to a couple books. And I think we talked about this in the last one, the books that for me were instrumental in helping me kind of, grow my business. What have you read? Is there one like book? And I couldn't do just one. I did more than one. So you might have more than one, but is there something that you really love that you would recommend?
Oh man. I was just talking about this earlier while I was talking to Brett in Tribe Title. Because he was asking me a similar question.
Right.
Yeah.
He wanted me to send him my list of books that I like to read that were really instrumental.
Yeah.
And it starts with the Bible.
Absolutely.
Love that.
I'm a Christian. I'm not a churchgoer. I picked the book up one day. It's a quick story. I'll tell you.
Want to know?
We want to hear everything.
Yeah.
When I met my wife in 2009, it was November of 2009. Month before Christmas, I showed up at this Christmas as the new boyfriend.
Right.
And my mother-in-law had a present for me at that Christmas, and it was a small book, and it was a little daily devotional book called Jesus Calling. Which
is, by the way, a book that you gifted to me.
Uh-huh.
Same book.
Yes.
So tell us more.
It's been a huge part. And I looked at my sweet mother-in-law, now mother-in-law, and I said, "Oh, thanks, Deb, but I'm not a reader."
Right.
And I hadn't read any books at that point since high school.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if I read them back then. My mom used to do my book reports.
Right.
And she said, "Don't worry." She said, "It's just one page a day. Just read it for me."
Right.
And I said, "Okay, I can read one page a day." And that one page a day turned into me reading that book, only that book, for almost 4 years before I picked up any other book.
Wow.
And the next book that I picked up was the Bible. And it was because I was curious about where these devotionals came from. It said, what scripture to find it.
Yeah.
And then I started just digging into that. And then I said, you know what? I'm not going to bounce around this thing. I'm going to start at the front page in Genesis.
Wow.
And go all the way to the back. And it takes me 1 year to read the entire Bible.
Wow.
And I've read it cover to cover 3, maybe 4 times now.
Wow.
And every book that I've read after that, because I read a lot about mindset.
Yeah.
Everything's come out of the Bible.
Right.
It's just worded different. It has a sexier cover on it.
Right.
Different verbiage, so it makes it easier for somebody to understand because reading the Bible is not easy.
Right.
That's so true. So this is kind of funny that, again, how things happen.
Right.
Our guest that's coming in after you is a new agent on our team. Well, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
And we had told her maybe a couple of the things that we were going to try to talk about, and she asked if it was appropriate to talk about her one book. It's the same book.
Isn't it awesome?
It's the same book. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, and then I told her today how you had gifted it to me at a time in my life where it was very appropriate, and so. I find that very ties a lot of things together.
Divine.
So,
what's very ironic also about that is the first day that I met Rick Smith, he had the same book on his desk, the Jesus Calling devotional.
No kidding.
Do you see what I mean? I mean, that's just, what do you do with that?
Other than things happen for a reason.
Oh yeah.
Very much
sure.
so.
Wow. I like that.
Getting kind of back to, so how did you make the transition from stellar real estate agent? I don't think anybody in Livingston County could deny that. To where you are now as an operating principal, and what does that even mean?
Well, it goes back to starting with Tom Kotzian walking in the door of KW Brighton, and I always tell the story about KW Brighton, and I hope it doesn't offend anybody. But when I walked in there, it was a very old and tired office.
Right.
It was not what I had looked up on the internet. Keller Williams is very vibrant and energetic and loud and proud, right? I walked into a brokerage that was very tired and quiet. They had just gone through the whole recession. And, the beige walls and the dust everywhere. It was a traditional brokerage with the words Keller Williams on it.
Yeah.
However, the training that I got, inside of those walls was absolutely incredible. So when Tom, I walked up to Tom and I said, all right, well, what do I do? And he said, meet me in the training room for script practice every morning at 9 a.m. and then go get on the phones and call as many people as you can and talk to them about real estate. So I just followed his rules or his direction and went and did that. I made anywhere between 100 to 300 phone calls every single day.
Wow.
I love it.
And nobody else in the office was doing it. So I was on an island just doing what I was told to do because I burned all the ships behind me.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Knew that I wasn't going to fail at this. And it was tough. It was very, very hard. I didn't know that part of real estate when that seed was planted in me.
Right.
Yeah.
I knew what it looked like to go show a house.
Right.
That was about it.
Yeah, but to get on the phone is a big reaching out, completely cold calling. I mean, that's a tough gig.
Yeah.
See.
So for almost 6 months, I would get to go home to my wife every single day, and she would ask me the same question every day when I walked in, and it was, anything yet?
Oh,
yeah.
Every day.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
It got so defeating because I was mentally exhausted from making all of these phone calls and all of the people just telling me, no, I'm not interested or don't ever call me again.
Yeah.
And I just had to push through and continue doing that day after day. And that question just started to wear on me.
right.
And 5.5 months go by with no deals, no money. She finally said, well, bills are starting to rack up, and maybe you should just go get a job, and it doesn't matter if it's for $10 an hour,
Right.
it'll help.
Yeah.
And I'd always worked with my hands. Growing up, like I said, I like to build things, not just businesses. I like to build stuff. And she said, why don't you go across the street to the oil change place? They're hiring, and see if you can get a job over there, to make some money.
Yeah.
And I shamefully went over there, and I felt like I was giving up, and I didn't want to give up. I wasn't ready to give up, but if I needed to help financially, then it was time. So I walked over there, and I literally walked over there because it was kitty corner
right across the street.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, I see you're hiring. I know my way around a toolbox. I'm trying to pursue a career in real estate, and it's not working. Would you hire me to change oil? And he said, no. He said, I'm not trying to hire somebody who wants to pursue a career in real estate. I want to hire somebody who wants to change oil.
Wow.
Oh.
And I went back to work the next day.
That's heavy. That's amazing.
Once again, totally glad that happened.
Amazing. So glad.
So happy. Selfishly and unselfishly.
Wow.
The next day I got into the office. I called a Zillow Make Me Move.
Yeah.
Yep.
Back when they had those.
Yeah.
This lady wanted to list her house for $120,000. It was overpriced. It was in Pinckney. And I called her up and set the appointment. And she was a sell-buy, so she needed to buy a house also. She was my first transaction.
That's awesome.
Wow.
And it was
this happened like next day too.
The next day.
Unbelievable.
So
Cool.
Right around my 6-month anniversary, I got my first paycheck.
Oh my gosh.
I kept on making those phone calls.
Yep.
Right.
I was building a stack of a database on 3x5 cards every single day. I had so many 3x5 cards finally of, just by making those calls. It didn't matter if I talked to one person every day that told me that they were considering
Right.
buying
That's
or
enough.
selling. And sometimes it was 1, sometimes it was 0, sometimes it was 5. But I built a database of 3x5 cards of people who showed interest in buying or selling or investing in real estate. And all I had to do was follow up with them and keep growing that database every day. And I did that consistently. And that's the key word. I didn't do it for a month.
Yeah.
I did it every day. And that's how I was able to go from that year runner-up rookie of the year, because the second 6 months of that first year, I sold just over $3 million.
Right.
And then I went on to selling $5.5 million and starting to build a team. And then some of my partners, we ended up building a $50 million real estate team with my home team.
Yep. Absolutely.
And then at that time, I also had hired a coach. My coach made me dream big, told me he wouldn't talk to me about any of my numbers until I could paint a picture of what my next 5 years looks like, or what my life looks like in 5 years. And it took me 3 weeks to do that.
Were you coaching through the KW model? Through MAPS?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and he said, Dominick, I want to know where you're going so I can help you get there.
Right.
And he said, visualize your dream life in 5 years. Money doesn't matter.
Isn't that a Gary Keller thing too? You can be anywhere in 5 years.
You can be anywhere you want to be in 5 years. And
Yeah.
he said that on stage. I remember hearing that about 5 years before I bought the company.
Wow. Who were you? Who was your coach? I'm just curious.
Back then, it was Danny Thompson.
Okay.
An amazing man. He actually reached out because he was writing a book and he loved my story, and he reached out to see if he could put it in there.
Heck yeah.
Because again, I was told to do something.
Yeah.
And I followed it, and I just did it. I had to go home, and my wife and I, we visualized this life, what kind of cars we would be driving, what our home would look like, and everything. And so much of it has come true.
Right.
Because of that exercise. But ultimately, at the end of the exercise of knowing what I wanted my life to look like, he said, "What are you doing for a living?" He was my real estate coach.
Yeah.
He said, "What are you doing for a living?" Because it wasn't just about selling real estate the rest of your life to get there.
Right.
Right.
It was, what is helping you get out of bed in the morning without an alarm clock because you're so excited to go and do that? What is that? And I said, well, I would love to help enough other people do what I did and build businesses like I did, because I didn't walk in a poster child to be great at real estate.
Right.
I have a lot of tattoos. I didn't have clothes that even fit me back then. I've never dressed up before in my life.
Right.
And I didn't have a great background. I mean, didn't have...
I saw a picture of you when you first started out. I don't know where it is. It's somewhere in the office. You got a little suit coat on, and you were in the cubicle. That's probably back in the day of making all those phone calls.
It was a baggy suit coat. It was like a hand-me-down.
Yeah.
And I had a shaved head at the time.
Yes.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, I got to see this picture.
It's in the training room.
Yeah, that's where it is. It's in the training room. I knew it. It's by Rick's picture. Mm-hmm.
It's probably so off the wall. I never even realized it was you.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
You probably wouldn't recognize me.
Right.
But yeah, so he asked me what I was doing for a living, and I said, I just want to help enough other agents do what I did, because it changed not only my life, but it changed the life for my grandkids.
Yeah.
Right.
Because if I can do that here, I can do it anywhere.
Yep.
And I built my foundation of building a real estate business. I built it the hardest way.
Yeah.
I built it on a solid rock foundation because I can do that again anywhere.
Really, the success of a real estate agent, frankly, is to build a database and reach out to those people. I mean, that's the key, and build the relationship enhance the relationship with the people that you're already in relationship with. Right. And if Simple. Everybody did that, just actually did that, there'd be so many top producing agents.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times we get, kind of lazy and we want to have the leads coming to us, but your success is because you did the work that everybody should be doing.
And it's duplicatable. I can
Absolutely.
do it again.
Exactly. And you can teach it,
and
right?
And
that's fantastic.
That's where the benefit is.
So in KW, and you've been KW all along, but there's, we keep talking about a lot of things that are KW things. Mm-hmm. What do you, in your mind, makes KW different from other brokerages? Although you haven't been at the other brokerages, but you hear a lot about them from agents like me who came from someplace else. What is it about KW that's different?
Where do I start?
Right?
No, and I'm not saying that in any other way. There's no wrong way, or right way of doing things.
Right.
I believe what makes KW different is that you are constantly supported. You're constantly built up. Everyone thinks bigger. Yes. Everyone helps each other. They're not afraid to share their tips and tricks.
So true.
There are more acorns than there are squirrels, right?
Yep.
Right.
We don't have a victim mentality. We all want each other to be successful. I mean, we all train classes. We bring in the best trainers. our top agents teach constantly. What else? I mean,
going back to the culture, I've held so many different jobs. Just never really found my niche. Mm-hmm. And I was just like you. I started as an admin, and I'm like, I'm never selling real estate. I'm too type A to go commission only. It's never going to happen. Told my team lead, it's never going to happen. And of course it happened because there's so many leads. And I'm like, well, I've got to do something about this. I'm a fixer. And it's just crazy how different Keller Williams is in so many different ways. And it's not just the learning and everything, it's the culture. Where do you walk into a building where we're over 180 agents now at Keller Williams Living, which is now we're the largest brokerage in Livingston County.
Correct.
And growing.
And growing.
Mm-hmm.
And there's not a single person in that room that you're like, oh, they're here.
No.
There's not.
No.
I mean, it's not. It's just like this. It's like a big hug. You walk in and you're like, oh.
I love that you said that. I talk to a lot of agents outside of our brokerage that talk about how, they would never join a massive brokerage like us because they'd get lost in the mix and it's just too big, and they like the small family atmosphere. And I said, I can't even tell you with words what we've created over here.
You can't.
You can't. You're exactly right. You're exactly right.
Right.
Yeah.
So
it's like a family hug. Isn't that what you just said?
It literally is. Yeah. You
Yeah.
walk in and it's just from the minute when I came to interview, from the minute I walked into the door, I was like, okay, all right.
Speaking of walking in the door, by the way, so when you took over the KW Livingston, and now we've changed it to Living, which I think is super cool. You opened up a brand new office, and it's state of the art in the process of another office.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit about what that looks like, and what prompted you to open the office that we have in Brighton right now, and how the atmosphere.
I love that question. And actually, it's going to go full circle back to when I walked into KW Brighton, right? I always told everyone that the KW that I had seen, not only from online at that point, but from going to Family Reunion, our largest, convention of the year, or going to Mega Camp, or going to even our regional training events where there's just so much energy. It was like a shiny star in the sky that I was always holding on to and just I was reaching for constantly. I wanted the splash of color. I wanted the energy. I wanted the top trainers to be in my head constantly. So that's what I wanted to create. So from the time that Rick and I had our first conversation about it, and he asked me, what my vision would be, he smiled and said, Dominick, you're doing everything that I wished I could have done, but I was afraid to change.
Right.
Oh, the change.
So
good.
We went from the old office in Howell that Rick had to put a roof over our head.
Yeah.
At that time, he was in a situation where he had to move us from Brighton, and he had to put a roof over our head. And God bless him for that, because it kept us together. But he knew that my vision was to downsize the space. We went from 25,000 square feet to less than 6,000 square feet. Now we have 50 more agents than we did back then.
Right.
And we're still not packed,
Yep.
We're still not packed in like sardines or anything. I mean, there's good energy when there's a lot of people there.
Great energy.
And that was the idea. I wanted to bring the KW that I had seen and felt and experienced in all of these other, events. I wanted to bring that right home to the office. I wanted to create a place where people actually, wanted to come to work, where they smiled when they walked in. Yeah. They were happy about it. It wasn't boring and dull and I have to go to
beige
work.
walls.
No more beige walls.
No beige walls.
Fun and color.
Yeah. It's a great space. And speaking of space, then plans for expansion here in Livingston County.
Oh yeah, we're going to open a KW Living West, and that's going to be in downtown Howell. It'll be a completely redone Art Deco building out there.
So cool.
Right in the heart of downtown. It'll be very urban and modern on the inside. It's going to be another high energy, creative work environment that,
Our
excited.
Our team is certainly looking forward to that space. I think we might have a little red door space over there too. So we're pretty excited about that.
So something I found out talking about Rick Smith, because he was the operating principal at the time, what did that transition look like, and kind of why did it happen, if you're okay to talk about it?
Yeah. It's a great story. So at the end of finishing up my vision for 5 years, and my coach asking me what I wanted to do for a living, and I told him that I wanted to help other agents do what I did.
Yeah.
He said, well, how about buying the office? And this was my 5-year buy. And at the time I was 35 years old. So these were on my sheet of paper. It was called my buy 40 goals.
Wow.
And he said, all right, next step is to go share your goals with Rick and let him know that, you'd like to buy the office in 5 years. And Rick had owned this office by himself since 1999, from the day that it opened. It's Market Center 149 out of over 900 market centers in the nation now.
Yep.
I didn't even realize that what the number was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's cool.
And I told Rick, I said, hey, in 5 years, I'd like to buy the office from you. And he said, well, Dominick, do you know how old I'll be in 5 years? And he was a young, good-looking guy, but he was going to be 70 in 5 years. He was older than he looked.
I didn't realize that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would have not known that.
It was it was crazy. And he said, I'll be 70 in 5 years and I'll be ready to retire. And I think that that's a fantastic idea. And then 5 months later, I got a phone call from Rick. He hadn't been in the office very much. He said he wasn't feeling good, but he was very personal about that.
Mm-hmm.
And he called me over to his house and said, I'd like to talk to you about something. And I went over there. I'd never been to his house before. He was very private again. And he said, Dominick, I have pancreatic cancer, but I'm going to make it through this. But I know that I need to get my ducks in a row. My lawyers told me, I need to get everything in order to make sure that everything that I've done doesn't go for nothing.
Absolutely.
He said, I've never stopped thinking about you telling me that you wanted to take over the office, and I'm here to tell you that I want you to buy the office. And he said, I looked at him.
Sorry.
Oh, no problem. He said, I looked at him and I was like, well, Rick, that was 5 months ago that I told you this, and it was a 5-year goal for a reason.
Right.
And I started saying, I can't afford it yet. Right?
Yeah.
And he had an appraisal sitting on the table for what the business had appraised for. And he looked at me and he said, don't tell me that you can't afford it. Go home, talk to your wife about it and pray about it, and come back and tell me how we're going to do this. And it was a 7-figure number.
Wow.
Whoa.
And I called my wife when I left there, and she was curious to know what went on, how it went. And I said, I'll talk to you about it when I get home. And I went home, and I was so worried to even talk to her about it because I didn't know how she was going to react. I thought that she was just going to say, well, gosh, that ship has sailed. We don't have that.
Yeah.
That'd be even hard to find.
Oh, yeah. And she goes, instead, when I told her, I said, Rick wants me to buy it, and this is how much it's going to be. And instead of saying, well, we can't do that, she said, well, Dominick, if anybody can figure out how to do that, it's you.
That's awesome.
So, I hope, good luck almost.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Go get them.
And I just, I prayed about it. I spent a lot of time talking to my family about it, and we made it happen. We just got to make it work, and we got through most of the process before Rick passed away.
Right.
Rick's nephew, Jim, is my partner with Tribe Title.
We want to talk about Tribe too, because that's cool.
So Jim was there throughout every conversation that Rick and I had, in the whole thing. And Rick knew that if anything did happen, that Jim was going to just take over and finish the transaction. And that's when we got into the end of it. But I guess leading into Tribe,
yeah.
I had no intentions of buying Tribe Title Company, which was Livingston
different.
Title.
Yeah, it was Livingston Title.
I didn't even use the company, and it was our in-house title company, and I didn't use it because the service was too inconsistent, and it just didn't work for my business.
Right.
And I didn't want to talk about it with Jim or Rick. I didn't want to talk about the title company at all.
Right.
But right at the dang near the last minute, Jim brought it up and he said, hey, I guess we need to talk about this title company because it's worth nothing if it's not in that KW. And I said, I don't like that title company. And he said, well, what would make you like it? And I said, well, I would have to be majority owner, and I basically have to burn most of it down and bring on good, start over.
Yeah.
And he said, well, deal. And I said, well, we have a little problem. I mean, I'm buying the KW. And, I don't know where I'm going to come up with the money for this. And he said, don't worry, we'll make it work.
Right.
We did.
And the people that you brought on board, so Nicole is a perfect example. Before I was in real estate, I owned a business, and she was with another title company that was in the same building where my business was. And I knew her back then. And when I realized that she was over at Tribe, I was super excited because she comes with a ton of experience. She's amazing. We love everybody over at Tribe. And we wouldn't take our business anyplace else. I mean, it's
the absolute truth. And there's so many brokerage affiliated or owned title companies that are not that way. Because they're in-house, they get so much business, they don't have to have good customer service. Mm-hmm. They're literally just a farm. It's just a nothing. And so I was very picky in the Lansing area. Nobody split closing. Mm-hmm. And I got so much flack for doing so. And but I had found a good title company, and more importantly, a good closer. That was really what my title people were just on point. I was queen. If I needed something, I got it. And I was nervous coming here, a new title company. In my position, I deal with them literally 25 times a day.
Right. And
from the start, I'm like, okay, I can do this. They are awesome. They know what they're doing. Their customer service is flawless. Whether you had it, whether we as a brokerage had a relationship with them or not, I would still use them. And I've had other agents who have never used them tell me how wonderful they are. And I'm like, yeah, tell me something I don't know.
Well, that was kind of one of the questions we were going to talk about is why is a title company so important in the real estate transaction? I mean,
gosh, well, I have a perfect example of why it's so important as of a conversation that I had 2 days ago with one of our agents. He sold a house he had the listing. Somebody had brought a full price cash offer. And when he ran title work, it turned out that the seller had already sold the house a couple of years ago via land contract to someone else. And this person was elderly and maybe didn't know what they were doing, but they sold the house to somebody else, and the seller couldn't sell the house.
Wow.
Because of title company, right? Because title found that out.
Wow.
When you're paying or buying or selling, the largest investment that you'll probably ever have.
Right.
It's important to know the backstory, and that's what title does. Mm-hmm. I mean, our examiner goes back as far as 40 years to pull all of the history on the property to make sure that someone else didn't put a lien on the property that you're buying or selling that needs to be paid before the transaction. It's a very important insurance to have when you're making a huge purchase or huge sale.
Yeah.
Nicole just caught something the other day. Dean's got a listing, and it's way more complicated behind the scenes than we thought. And not only did she bring everything to our attention, she gave us explicit instructions on how to fix it. Mm-hmm. She spoke directly with the seller and helped calm him down, because it went from something like nothing, and then it's a trust, and there's a mortgage, and it's all connected to it was just very confusing. And but yet again, they took something that could have been kind of a blow up and just whoop, made it easy.
Well, I could say, you talked about burning it down. However you got to where you are now with Tribe, you did it right. So, yeah.
Well,
you've done a lot right.
Thank you. You know what? And I've been very blessed along the way. I've spent a lot of time learning and growing to become the person that I needed to become in order to have the things that I have and to be able to run the business and lead people. I don't stop. I'm up before everybody else is. And if I have to, I'll stay up later than everybody else if I have competition on my tail or whatever. I'm not looking back at competition.
Right.
I'm pushing forward constantly. and I have to grow enough to where I can keep people like you in my world.
Yep.
Right, and continue adding value. Because the minute that I stop, just like if any other broker around here stops learning and growing, they're choosing to stop adding value to everyone who's trusted them to be a part of their world.
Exactly.
I won't. My team won't. And the title company the same. They will not.
Right.
We're building that business on the same principles that we're building KW, and we are making sure. One of the main reasons I didn't use Livingston Title back in the day was because they just expected my business. They didn't care about it, right?
Exactly.
Because they were in-house. That was a huge point that you said. And that was something that we were absolutely not going to do. We were going to earn everybody's business every single time. And that's exactly what Jen and Nicole and Tina and Ashley and Sean, and that's what they all do. Like it's part of the culture of that office, and the culture in that office is no different than KW. Like,
not at all.
Well, and
we'll just go down there and hang out.
Yeah.
That culture, I think, trickles down to the agents. It certainly trickles down to our team as far as learning and growing. You can't stop. I mean, we're always learning and growing. So, I can't see down there.
No, that's okay. That's the easy wrap up question. It's been such a pleasure. Is there anything else you want to say, or is there ways to, let's say, hopefully agents are listening, or people who are interested in real estate, how could they contact you to rush and sign up?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they can email me at dominick@kw.com or call 810-227-5500.
Awesome.
And I guess the one thing I would like to say, and I could go on about this all day, is if you work on yourself more than you work on your business, you will ultimately become more successful than you've ever dreamed of.
Amen.
Amen.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much again. It has been, it's always a pleasure to hang out with you, but this has been particularly awesome.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad you guys invited me.
So glad to have you. It's a wrap.
Yeah. It's a wrap.
Thanks, Dominick.
Thank you.